A woman named Margaret White is alone in a bedroom, screaming in pain, convinced she is dying. She has no idea she is in labor. She has spent her whole life treating the body as something shameful, something to be hidden and punished. And so the most natural thing a body can do has come to her as a complete shock. She pulls the baby out herself. She holds it up and looks at it, and her first instinct is to kill it. She does not. Instead, she whispers, "It is a test," and she lets the baby live. That baby is Carrie White. Years later, Carrie is a teenager in a small town in Maine, and nothing about her life has improved since that first terrible night. She is pale and quiet and does not know how to exist around other people the way other people exist around each other. She has been homeschooled by Margaret until the state stepped in and forced her back into the system. She has no friends, she eats alone, she flinches when people get too close. At softball practice one afternoon, the girls are laughing and playing, and Carrie misses the ball every single time. The other girls make their contempt clear. The gym teacher, Ms. Desjardins, blows her whistle and calls it, "Hit the showers, let's go." And that is when it happens. Standing in the shower, Carrie notices blood. She has no idea what is happening to her body. Margaret has never once explained menstruation to her daughter. To Carrie, the blood means she is dying. She panics, sliding to the floor of the bathroom, screaming, shaking uncontrollably. One of the girls notices and runs to tell the others. They crowd around the bathroom door, not to help, but to laugh. They chant the word at her. Period, period, period. They mock and jeer while a 16-year-old girl curls on the floor believing she is bleeding to death. Ms. Desjardins hears it from the office and comes running. She shuts it down immediately, pushes through the crowd, and gets down to Carrie's level. She tries to calm her down, but Carrie is shaking so hard she can barely breathe. Desjardins slaps her once to break the panic. The moment her hand connects, the light bulb above them sparks and dies. Carrie looks up at her and asks if she is dying. Desjardins holds her face and tells her no, she is not dying. It is okay. She takes Carrie to the principal's office. Carrie stands outside the door while Desjardins explains what happened. The principal, Mr. Morton, is genuinely shocked that in this day and age, a girl her age did not know what a period was. Desjardins asks what will happen to the other girls, and he says they will be disciplined. He says Carrie should be sent home for the rest of the day. Then he calls her into the office and calls her Cassie. She does not correct him. He calls her Cassie again. Still, she says nothing, carrying the indignity of it in silence the way she has always carried everything. He calls her Cassie a third time, and something shifts behind her eyes, and she says firmly, "It is Carrie." The moment the name leaves her lips, the desk in the corner moves on its own. Books scatter from the shelves behind him. Carrie walks out and leaves Mr. Morton and Miss Desjardins standing in stunned silence. Walking down the hall to her locker, Carrie passes students who were already told what happened. Someone has written "plug it up" on her locker door. When she opens it, a cascade of tampons falls out at her feet. The hallway erupts in laughter. Carrie says nothing. She takes her books and leaves. Walking home alone, a boy on a bicycle rides past her and then turns around and comes back, intending to mock her. In shock, she turns at the sound of his voice, and something inside her reaches out without permission and sends the boy flying off his bike. He hits the ground hard and lies there. Carrie walks past him without stopping and does not look back. On the walk home, she remembers something from when she was much younger. She had wandered into a neighbor's compound once, and Margaret had punished her for it. As Margaret beat her and Carrie cried, the whole sky around them erupted. Fire fell from above like the world itself was responding to a child's pain. She has always been able to do this. She just did not know what it meant. At home, Margaret is waiting. She tells Carrie she is a woman now. Carrie asks her why she never told her. She says she was so scared. She tells her they laughed at her and threw things at her. Margaret does not comfort her. She tells Carrie what happened to her body is a curse. The curse of blood, the punishment God visited on Eve for her sin. She quotes scripture and calls menstruation a mark of shame and demands Carrie repeat after her. Carrie refuses. Margaret drags her to the closet by force and locks her inside, telling her to pray for forgiveness. Carrie sits in the dark. She has hidden a beauty magazine in the closet. She reads it by the thin light under the door, this small secret act of wanting a different life. When she hears her mother's footsteps approaching, she tucks it away quickly and starts praying. Margaret's voice comes through the door, telling her to go to bed. The closet unlocks. Carrie comes out. Neither of them says another word. 5 days before prom, Desjardins lines the girls up in the gym and tears into them. She asks if they ever stop to think that Carrie White might have feelings. She asks if they think she is ugly. Then she tells them they are ugly. She says she saw just how ugly every one of them was on that morning in the locker room. The punishment is 3 days of suspension and refusal of their prom tickets. No exceptions. Meanwhile, Carrie walks into the school library and approaches the librarian with a quiet determination. She asks if she can be shown how to do a search on the internet. The librarian shows her. Carrie types carefully and searches for what she has been experiencing, for miracles, for the moving of objects by unseen force, for others like her. She finds pages and pages. She finds that she is not alone. She finds that what lives inside her has a name. In class one day, a boy writes a note and passes it around, and the students begin to laugh. Carrie feels the laughter spreading through the room like a heat she cannot contain. She begins to shake at her desk, the air around her going strange, the room responding to something only she can feel, until the teacher gently touches her shoulder and tells her she can go to her next class. She pulls herself together and leaves. Sue and Tommy are watching a movie together one evening when Sue pauses it and turns to him. She describes what the character in the film did, a popular boy who takes a lonely girl to prom and treats her like she matters. She tells Tommy she wants him to do the same thing for Carrie White. Tommy says it is a bad idea. It is mean, he says. It will seem like a trick. Sue says it will not seem like a trick if he does not make it a trick. She tells him to ask her, be nice to her, hold her hand. He resists. She convinces him. Chris Hargenson's father, a lawyer, storms the school to demand his daughter's prom ticket back. He is loud and threatening and talks over Ms. Desjardins like she is furniture. He threatens to sue the school for physical and verbal abuse. The school authority lets him finish. Then they tell him exactly what his daughter and her friends did to Carrie White in that locker room. And they tell him quietly that if he files charges on those grounds, they will cross-file the same charges against his daughter on behalf of Carrie and the 19 other students in that room. Mr. Hargenson says, I will see you in court, and turns to leave. The school authority says, very well, court it is. He walks out speechless. Afterwards, Chris finds Sue and tries to rally her. Sue looks at her with a calm, steady disinterest and makes it clear she is done. Chris stares at her as if she has become unrecognizable. At Carrie's house, she practices alone in her room. She sits in front of her hairbrush and concentrates, and the brush begins to move on its own, sliding toward the edge of the table, tapping against the wood. On. She places it back. She focuses again. Then Margaret's voice comes from the other side of the door, asking if she is saying her prayers. Carrie answers. Something about the interruption ignites a fury in her, and she shouts back, and the hairbrush flies across the room, and everything on every surface goes with it. The whole room erupting in a storm of displaced objects. She stands in the wreckage and just breathes. In the school library, Tommy finds Carrie among the stacks. He is easy and kind and has no obvious reason to be there. He asks her to prom. Carrie tells him she does not like being tricked. Tommy says it is not a trick. He says his girlfriend Sue thinks she is really interesting, that she has more going on than people know. And that part of Sue wants to see the look on Chris Hargenson's face when she finds out Carrie is going to prom and she is not. Carrie almost smiles. She says she would love to go. Then she takes her books. The bell rings and she says she needs to get to class and walks away. Tommy follows her into the hallway and stops her. He says he is not leaving until she says yes. He says if anyone laughs at her, he will deal with it himself. She looks at him for a long moment. She says okay. At home, Carrie tells Margaret about the prom date. Margaret says no, absolutely not. It is evil and it is a sin. She throws water on her. When Carrie tries to leave the room, the door slams shut on its own. Carrie turns and tells her mother to please sit down and talk with her. Margaret tries to find another way out, and the table flies across the room and blocks her. Carrie asks her just to sit. She tells her she wants to start living her own life. She says she does not like her mother's kind of life. She says she is not a witch, but that sometimes she can move things, and that she has read about others who can do the same thing. Margaret's face hardens at the mention of the internet. Carrie tells her in a voice that shakes only a little that she is going to prom and nothing is going to stop her. Then she says, I love you, Mama, and she lets her go. The night before prom, Chris and Billy and two others drive to a pig farm in the dark. One of them holds the sledgehammer in front of the pen and cannot bring himself to swing it. He is shaking. Billy takes it from his hands and does it himself without hesitation. They fill the bucket and carry it away into the night. On prom night, Margaret walks in on Carrie dressing. It is a pink dress that Carrie made herself. Margaret tells her to take it off and burn it and pray for forgiveness. She says she will burn it with her. She says they will laugh at her like they always do. She reminds her of Jezebel in the Bible and what happened to women who wore garments with lustful purpose. Carrie presses her hands flat on the table, holding herself still, pushing everything building inside her back down with enormous effort. And then she pushes her mother out of the room with her mind and shuts the door. Margaret is left standing on the other side of it. Carrie finishes getting ready alone. She paces the house waiting for Tommy. The anxiety grows in her and the house responds. The table rises. Chairs lift from the floor. Everything she is afraid of and desperate for at the same time is making the whole room hover. Then the doorbell rings and Tommy's voice calls from outside. He hears things falling in the house. She opens the door slightly and he asks if her ceiling is collapsing. She says yes. He asks if he can see it. She says no. He tells her she looks beautiful. She steps outside and sees the limousine, and she cannot stop smiling. He opens the door for her. As the car pulls away, Margaret watches from the window in silence and says nothing. At school, Chris and Billy watch from a distance as Tommy and Carrie step out of the limousine together. Billy tells Chris that if she gets caught and mentions his name, he will kill her. He tells her this is criminal assault. She nods. Inside the gymnasium, where Sector people immediately notice Carrie. Some are surprised, some are jealous of the dress, of the way she carries herself, of the fact that she is here at all. Tommy introduces her to his best friend George and his girlfriend Erica, who compliments the dress and cannot believe she made it herself. Carrie begins to relax for the first time all night. Tommy asks her to dance. She says she cannot. He says it is a slow song and all they have to do is stand close together and shift their weight. He takes her hand and shows her the steps. She laughs while she learns. As they dance, Carrie thanks Tommy for bringing her and for everything. She says she knows he does not like her that way, but that she is glad she got to be his date tonight. Tommy says he is glad too. Ms. Desjardins finds her at the punch table afterward and tells her she looks amazing. Carrie says it is kind, but she knows it is not true. Desjardins tells her to take a compliment. She says she would not say it if she did not mean it. She sits with her for a moment and tells her something that nobody has ever taken the time to say to Carrie White. Nothing that happens up until now matters after graduation. The ones who were miserable turn out just fine. She swears to God. The voting for prom king and queen begins. Carrie is surprised to find her name and Tommy's on the ballot. Tommy tells her not to worry. If they win, all they do is sit on the throne and wave a scepter and look like jackasses for a few minutes. She smiles. What neither of them knows is that the ballots have already been tampered with. Norma switched them. Tommy and Carrie were placed on the ballot by design. Above the gymnasium, hidden in the rafters, Chris and Billy are in position. The bucket of pig's blood hangs directly over the podium where the king and queen will stand. The rope is in Chris's hands. She watches through a gap in the ceiling with her phone, waiting for the name to be called. Billy is beside her, whispering urgently, "Pull it. Do it now." Chris's heart is hammering. She cannot make herself pull it. Billy hisses at her. She still cannot do it. He leans over and tells her this was her idea, and if she loses her nerve now after everything they have done, none of it means anything. The MC opens the envelope. Tommy Ross and Carrie White are announced. The crowd cheers. Carrie is trembling, genuinely terrified, and Tommy takes her hand and tells her whatever happens tonight, she is queen. She walks toward the stage as if she still cannot quite believe this is real, and people clap for her as she passes them. She smiles in a way she has never smiled before. She stands on the throne under the spotlight and the crown is placed on her head and she closes her eyes. Back at the house, Margaret stands completely still in the middle of the room. She says nothing. She does nothing. She just stands. At the gymnasium, Tommy and Carrie are seated on the thrones and crowned. Then the MC announces that the king and queen will now lead the court in a dance. They come down from the podium together. They dance. And then, at the center of the floor, surrounded by people who have never once been kind to her, they kiss. A single drop of blood lands on her hand. She looks up. Chris finally pulls the rope. The bucket tips and 2 gallons of pig's blood pour directly down onto Carrie White. While stalked, it drenches her completely. It splashes across Tommy's face and chest. The gymnasium goes silent for 1 terrible second. And then the students who were in on it start laughing. Then others join in, calling her pig, calling her names she has heard all her life. Carrie stands completely still, soaked in blood, beginning to shake. Tommy, furious, tears the crown off his own head and slams it to the floor. At that exact moment, the bucket drops from the ceiling and strikes him in the head. He collapses. Carrie does not go to him. She does not scream. She just looks out across the room with eyes that are not frightened anymore. And then the gymnasium doors slam shut on their own. Every exit, every window, every way out, sealed. A student near the door jams his hand in the gap, trying to force it open, and the door crushes his fingers as it closes. Stage lighting rigs tear loose from the ceiling and crash down. The fire hoses rip themselves from the walls and begin to arc water across the crowd. The electrical systems blow and sparks catch the decorations. The sprinkler systems erupt, and Carrie White stands in the center of all of it, completely still. Arms slightly raised, eyes moving slowly across the room as she brings everything down on the people who laughed at her. The bleachers collapse. The ceiling catches fire. Students scream and run for doors that will not open. A student grabs a hanging rope and tries to climb to safety, and Carrie sends a chair flying into him and he falls directly into the fire. She watches some of them die. She does not notice others. She is not thinking about who deserves what. She is just burning. Ms. Desjardins grabs as many students as she can and smashes a window with a chair and helps them climb out one by one. Water pours in from every bursting pipe and an electrical device falls into it, sending a current across the floor that electrocutes everyone still standing on it. Carrie walks through the electrified water without being touched. The doors open as she approaches them. She walks out. The doors close behind her. The building begins to collapse. When Sue hears the sirens, she drives toward the school. Police have blocked the entire area. She stands at a gas station watching police cars shake on their frames, watching lights go out across the city block by block. Yet then the fuel pump beside her tears loose, and gasoline begins pouring across the concrete. The police order everyone to leave. Sue turns to go, and then she sees her, Carrie, walking through the fire on the street, surrounded by burning things, completely unhurt and completely unreachable. Sue calls her name. No response. Carrie keeps walking. One of the students manages to get to a phone and reaches Chris and Billy. He tells them that most of the students are trapped. The school is burning. The gym is gone. Chris wants to go and see. Billy drives toward the fires. As Carrie walks home through the burning town, things break and burn all around her. Cars lift off the ground and crash. Explosions open up in storefronts. Everything her presence touches comes apart or catches fire. She does not look at any of it. She just walks. Chris and Billy are driving fast toward the fire when a pole collapses across the road in front of them. Billy swerves around it at the last second. They keep going, and then they see a figure ahead on the road, a girl in a dress. They do not recognize her at first in the dark and the smoke. Billy understands a moment before Chris does. He floors the accelerator. Carrie does not flinch. The car hits her. It flips end over end and crashes into a ditch with Billy and Chris inside. The engine catches fire. Carrie stands over the wreckage for a moment, looking down at what is left of them. Then she walks on. She walks home. As she moves through the house, everything on the floor parts for her, clearing a path like the sea drawing back. The taps in the bathroom open and run on their own. She climbs the stairs, reaches the bathtub. Lowers herself in and sits under the running water as it washes the blood from her hair and her face and her hands. While she is in the bath, Margaret walks in. Carrie cries out for her. She says she cannot remember what happened. She begs her mother to help her, to tell her what she did. Margaret kneels beside the tub and tells her to say a prayer with her. Repeat every word, she says. Carrie closes her eyes and begins to repeat after her mother, her voice broken and exhausted, finding comfort in the familiar words for the first time in her life. And then Margaret presses her daughter's head into the water. Carrie struggles. She reaches up and claws for the surface. Margaret holds her down with everything she has, both hands pressing, her whole weight behind it. The house begins to shake around them. Carrie goes still in the water. "Nah, what to eat?" And then her hand rises and finds her mother's. Like a vision, she sees inside her mother's chest. She sees the heart beating, and then the heart squeezes. Once, slowly, and stops. Margaret's breath cuts off like a light being switched off. She falls back from the tub and does not get up. Margaret White dies on the bathroom floor. Sue Snell has been searching the burning town for Carrie since the moment she heard the sirens. She finds her way to the White House, and inside she discovers Carrie lying face down in the bathtub, the water still running, and Margaret's body on the floor beside it. She pulls Carrie out of the water. She begins CPR, pushing down on her chest again and again, willing her back with her hands. Carrie gasps. She opens her eyes. Sue holds her face and tells her it is not her fault. Yes, she tells her she has to leave this place. Weeks later, two women stand in a cemetery. A headstone with two names carved into it. Margaret White, Carrietta White. One of them is Sue. She places flowers at the base of the stone. Then she turns to the woman standing beside her and says she needs to leave this town. She needs to go somewhere no one knows her face. Somewhere she is not known as the girl from the fire. Somewhere she can start again. The other woman is Carrie. She says quietly that she does not know where to go. Sue says it does not matter. She will drive her as far as she can. Halfway at least. That much she can do. They get into the car together and drive. Outside the window, the town disappears behind them. At some point on the long road ahead, Carrie drifts into sleep. What her face in sleep is the face of someone who has been carrying something unimaginably heavy for a very long time and has finally, just for this moment, been allowed to put it down. Then she dreams of her mother. Margaret's face appears again behind her closed eyes, as if she never left, as if she never will. Sue glances in the rearview mirror and asks gently if she is having a bad dream. Carrie opens her eyes. She looks out at the road. They keep driving. So what did you think of this story? Let me know in the comments below. And if you enjoyed this recap, don't forget to like and subscribe for more. See you in the next one.